Thank you for joining me today. What we're doing today is something which I'm really proud about today. It's an event and an initiative that is really touching upon mental health and well-being, specifically to do with social care and those within social care. It's really interesting times, and I'm not sure if this was done on purpose. Some people might say that, but the notion of race inequality and the notion of race and well-being, talking about it, considering what's been going in the media. So I don't take any plaudits for doing it. It just happened to fall on this day. So thank you for joining me in regards to that. So first and foremost, so anyone, when you come in, my name is Dudley Sawyerr. I'm the chair supporting registered managers at London Care and Support Forum, LCAS, for over 15 London boroughs. I'm also the founder of Race Equality and Social Care Alliance, known as RESCA. The mission is to make race inclusive, not exclusive, to all those working and being served by social care sector, and really to help raise awareness of culture in social care. I'm also a consultant at People Care Services, servicing the social care sector, offering consultancy to ensure UK social care providers are compliant with CQC regulations and local authority guidelines, specialising to help organisations reach cultural change. And for me, this is really key in what we're doing today, is really looking at an initiative called Keeping Well. I'm just going to start with some housekeeping of really what is going to be taking place today, and before we start going. So housekeeping, first and foremost, just to let you know, so anyone, if they want to put their cameras down if they don't want to be recorded, this discussion is being recorded. And if you want, during the conversations and during the event, you can ask questions in the chat function. And then also as well, there'll be a Q&A just before the end of the session. And discussion on the session will be ending at 12:30. And so people will be made aware of what's going on. The agenda today and what we're looking at is an intro, which I'm going to start with. Then we're going to have a conversation with one of our guest speakers, Dame Elizabeth Anionwu, followed by Dr. Ellen Herralao from SLaM. Then we're going to have two speakers from social care, colleagues who are experiencing what they've experienced during the pandemic. And finally, some Q&As and feedback was also as well of what's been happening during this time. So I'd like to just really start and give the intro of what I'm going to start with. And I'm really going to just start by talking about the first speaker, the inspirational Dame Elizabeth Anionwu, a nurse, health visitor, tutor working with the Black community and minority and ethnic communities as well in London. The beginning of her journey was that she quoted saying, "People from diverse cultures are not always valued and still sometimes just seems as a problem." She became the United Kingdom's first sickle cell and thalassemia nurse specialist, whilst helping to establish in Brent the first nurse-led UK sickle and thalassemia screening and counselling centre. She did this whilst dealing with the British attitude towards the perceived stigma of race. Dame Elizabeth turned shame and prejudice into strength and service through her work in the NHS and social care. Later on in life, she was awarded the Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 2017. She's very, very proud of receiving a Pride of British Award Lifetime Achievement Award, the Pride of Britain Award Lifetime Achievement, where she probably will tell you is probably one of her proudest moments, where she was pictured and presented the award by Janet Jackson. She also was known as put on the list of BBC's 100 Women in 2020, and in Nursing Times Chief Nursing Officers UK Outstanding Lifetime Achievement Award. Before I actually get start of a conversation with Dame Elizabeth, I want to share a short video that really hit home of being a Black person working in health and social care sector, and I hope you can appreciate of what it's about. So if you just listen and then please and be welcome to this presentation.
of some of the staff was starting to get me down. The final straw was getting into trouble with the sister of a postnatal ward for becoming too involved without her permission. It concerned an older middle-class woman who was both depressed and struggling to breastfeed her baby. I spent some time at her bedside, successfully helping the baby to suckle at last. The mother was very exhausted, and her depression developed into the more severe mental illness of puerperal psychosis. She was transferred to a psychiatric unit in a different part of the city. After some time, her husband, a journalist, contacted me saying that his wife wanted to see me. I went and was delighted to see the improvement in her state of mind and how well she was bonding with her child. On my return to the hospital, I was summoned to see the ward sister and shocked when she gave me a dreadful dressing down. A friend of hers at the psychiatric unit had informed her of my visit. All I can remember her saying repeatedly was, "Just who do you think you are? Who gave you permission to visit her?" It seemed to be such a daft and unjust admonition that after her dismissal of my initial response concerning the husband's request, it seemed better to just keep quiet. Once out of her office, I struggled to stop the tears from running down my face and felt a sense of blackness surrounding me. There was no way that I wanted to continue my studies, and I decided to look into how to become a health visitor. The idea of working in the community and visiting families in their own homes to promote health appealed to me, much more than working in a hospital. In the meantime, continuing with French classes, I always wanted to improve my French. Continuing with French classes at the Institut Français helped to lessen my feelings of depression. One day I saw a small announcement on the notice board stating that a family living near Paris was seeking a person to speak English to their 2 children. My mind was made up. This would be my next move. Around the same time, while walking along the hospital corridor, the matron stopped me in my tracks. She asked me why I was looking so despondent, and lo and behold, the tears started flowing again. So she invited me to come to her office, and over a cup of tea asked me why I had changed so much from the cheerful student of 6 months ago. I was amazed that she even knew me, never mind the degree of sympathy and support she offered. So I just told her all my problems. Firstly, she said she would speak to the sister in question, as I had been quite right to visit the psychiatric unit. Then she proceeded to inquire about my future plans and promised to give me a reference when I applied to become a health visitor.
Thank you very much. As you can imagine, this has been a really helpful, powerful experience that I thought I would share. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dame Elizabeth Anionwu.
Thank you very much. Oops.
We can hear you, don't worry.
Good, thank you. Yeah, can I just say thank you though for the invite? I'm very honoured.
Okay, that you're welcome. It's really interesting because we're talking about well-being and mental health, and we're looking at the effect it's having or it's had on the Black, Asian and ethnic groups and workforce. You are someone who has had various experiences in your lifetime. So can you just give us an idea of what and how it started, basically?
Well, gosh, I did watch the programme last night. We all know which programme we're talking about, don't we? I don't need to.
We do.
And it reminds you how unexpectedly raw, traumatic memories can be brought to the fore. And the particular, the significant issue for me was the fact that I'm 73. So we have to go back to 1947 when my parents, who were not, they never married, they separate, but they were both at Cambridge University. They were students. And my mother got pregnant with me towards the end of her second year at Cambridge University, where she was studying classics. And she came from a strict, loving Catholic Irish heritage family. We're all into intersectionality. Yes. And I could give a master class. Oh no, we don't talk about master classes, do we? Come on, it's International Women's Day. I could give a class in intersectionality. I have to be honest, when I didn't pick up what intersectionality meant, it sort of started to appear in debates and publications. But when I actually looked up the definition of it, I thought, wow, yeah, this does make sense, because my mother couldn't bring herself to tell her parents she was pregnant. That's the first thing. It was my grandmother that realized when she came home on holiday and was measuring her up for a skirt. My mother, I think, was about 6 months pregnant. And so my grandmother said, "Are you pregnant?" My mother said, "Yes." Grandmother said, "Well, when were you going to tell us?" And my mother apparently said she wasn't going to tell them. She was going to go down to the local river, jump in to kill herself. She was so, well, you could remember in the context of just after the Second World War, in the Midlands, so few Black individuals in that era. There were, but very few. And so there was this whole issue of everybody's world apparently coming crashing down. My grandparents thought that their main issue was my mother being pregnant and not being married and wishing her to continue her studies. And everybody rallied around. My mother could not bring herself to add the extra information that the father of the baby was Black, Nigerian. So this is what struck me yesterday as I was watching the program and hearing the concerns about the color of the baby, what the concerns. It's not asking, about, I think people are trying to just, the word concern is the issue, the concern about what color the baby might be. So imagine then, my grandparents are coming to visit my mother after she's had me in a mother and baby home in Birmingham now. And it was run by Irish nuns, Catholic nuns. And the nun barred my grandparents from initially coming in to see us both because she wanted to prepare them. And she prepared them by saying, to be sure, the baby's a little dark. Yeah. So it's that sentence that I've grown up with. I mean, I was in children's home for 9 years, but my mother never, ever gave me up for adoption. Life was just very difficult for her. She couldn't provide a home for me until I was 9. Then there was physical abuse by my stepfather. Then my grandparents, this is all on the maternal side, rescued me. Let's fast forward. In the early 70s, it was an era very similar to what we're going through now in terms of Black Lives Matter. The late 60s, early 70s, I'd done my nurse training in London in 65 to 68. You've read a clip of me trying to do midwifery and being bullied. I mean, it was straightforward bullying and harassment I experienced at the hands of that midwifery sister, but rescued. There's a theme of rescue and support through my, I wrote my memoir, sorry, I should put that in context. And they're coming out again in September, revised, updated from when I wrote them. So really, I'm just trying to paint a picture that I grew up in a totally white environment, partly institutional care, partly family care, whatever. But all the way through, there was a link in terms of my brown skin. And I can't say that I faced the most awful racist behavior that we know individuals still experience today. I have received some, but not. But the story, the experience I do remember, which resonates with people who wish to feel that people accept them in their community, is as I was growing up, I would, and everybody knows this, but I want to just personalize it. So I'm stopped by this very nice, she seemed like a really old lady. She was probably about 30 or something, you know, I was really small. And she said, "Hello, my dear, where are you from?" And I said, "Birmingham." And I had a real Birmingham Brummie accent in those days. And all I remember was the wagging finger in front of my face. No, 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 no. And I really was scared. I'm thinking, what have I said wrong? No, 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 no. Where do you really come from? We all know, we know that. So that was me starting to feel denied of my origins, denied of my where I was born. And that sowed a seed in my child's mind, was I have to find out at some point where I am from. But I meant that by my heritage, my ethnic heritage. To cut a long story short, in 1972, I found my father within 3 days of looking for him. He was in London. He was actually based in Nigeria. But how lucky I was, because when I see the programs, Who Do You Think You Are and Long Lost Families,
yeah,
I found my father, and and knew him for 8 years before he died quite young. I went to Nigeria, met my Nigerian family. There was a few in London, but the bulk were in Nigeria. And all I can say was that sorted me out. That's the phrase I would use. It sorted me out in terms of all these uncertainties about being seen as other, outsider, inferior, stupid. I wasn't stupid. I mean, I know I'm not stupid, but you know, all this rubbish, and it is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. When we dig into this is when well-being is the issue. And my life, I know I've had a good life, but I've had a good life because I've had people who have really helped me identify. I'll finish with this. What was the factor that changed me into seeking out my father? I told you about the wagging finger, but that just planted a seed at the back of my mind. I didn't do anything about it. It wasn't until I was in France. I lived in Paris for 9 months. I worked in Paris, and I got very friendly with a French Benin radical midwife. I mean, she was a midwife as she was radical. I loved her to bits, Paula. I told her the story about when I was in the children's home and I washed my face 10 times to become white. Oh, to try and become white, because I was the only Black child in the children's home in that era. And she said, "You know something, Elizabeth? You need to read Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks." Frantz Fanon was from Martinique, which was then a French colony when he was born, became part of France now. And he worked as a psychiatrist in, I think it was Tunisia, a large psychiatric hospital. And he was observing how brown-skinned individuals internalized self-hatred of their skin color because all around them, people who didn't have their skin color were treated better. Pretty straightforward. And but how it negatively implodes on individuals if they haven't got pride in who they are, regardless of what society says around them. And you know something, Dudley, that that book, to start with, is a little bit hard because it's quite theoretical to start with, but once you get into it, it really, that expression, scales off eyes, hey, that's what it's all about. And it really did blow my mind, actually. There are a few books that have had impact. I love reading that book. And even the title, Black Skin, White Masks. So that's what eventually, it took me a few years, but that's when I wrote to my mom and asked about my dad, and gradually I just calmed down. The anger is still there. You probably have sensed it. And I'll finish on this. I say that my anger has helped me because I've used my anger positively. I've channeled my anger into campaigns working with other people, sickle cell, Mary Seacole Statue campaign. You know, anger equals energy, and that energy can be negative or it can be positive. If it's negative, all of you know better than me the impact of negative energy turned into against yourself. I turn that. When people meet me, they if they don't know me, they think, oh, she's quite nice. She's got a sense of humor. She's quite intelligent. She seems to move around. She mixes in different groups. Blah 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 blah. It's when they press those buttons, and a little bit of what I heard last night in that interview started to press a few buttons, and then I started to think, don't get down, because that's the whole issue. What do you do when you start to feel, ooh? Yeah. And then I thought, can I say that this is a swear alert?
Yeah, everyone, just be very careful. Just everyone to close your eyes. We'll probably have to edit
basically, it's don't let the buggers get to you. That's all it is. Yeah. And we've got to have some ways of sort of hearing what our body is telling us, what our mind is telling us. And I wanted to sleep last night, and I did. I slept very well, by the way. So that's really, maybe I should finish.
So I mean, it's very interesting. Obviously, the clip that we showed, and obviously what you've expressed of partly of your life and what you've gone through. I think a question that we all are looking for, and partly of what's happened during the pandemic, is how people have coped. People have had to be resilient, but I always classify it as mental health and well-being is the ticking time bomb of the pandemic, because what's left afterwards will be a lot of broken minds and people who probably may have struggled and had to put up with things. So from your point of view, you've had to go through a lot during your lifetime, experiencing the stigma of your race and various things, and you've come through at the end of it. So in the clip we showed, I guess the question would be, what have you done? What did you do, or what did you do to cope with being any form of depression, anxiety, and probably maybe going into maybe a deeper mental health zone? I mean, the reason why I mention this is because we know as the Black, Asian, and sort of ethnic groups that it's a stigma around our necks. So how did you cope with it?
With this, are you talking about the current?
I'm talking during your life.
Oh, right.
During your life.
I've realized that I've developed what I call my toolbox. It's like it's an imaginary. It's not imaginary. But it's. I realized that I've pulled together. Some people will call them strategies, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think it's because I've read a lot. I'm very, very curious. And I'm particularly interested in, I'm very nosy. And I'm very interested in, why do certain people survive difficulties and others who seem to have everything just mess up? And it's a mixture of things, really. But so individuals like Nelson Mandela, you have to remember my age and the period I've come through. There's a cultural, historical, political context to everybody's life. So, but I was becoming interested in politics with a small p and the world around me and race, etc. in the late 60s. and 70s. So the speech, it wasn't a book, it was the speech of Nelson Mandela, The Long Road to Freedom.
Yeah.
And, you know, that sentence at the end, you know, if I have to die for it, for this cause, what? You know, I mean, that's, and I mean, he's so eloquent. And I couldn't understand how he didn't get angry. Well, he did get angry, didn't he? Because that's, you know, that's why he got into prison in a way. But you know what I mean? And then subsequently following, you know, his imprisonment, the whole campaign to free Nelson Mandela. My daughter tells a very interesting story of when she was quite young and we were shopping and she was trying to help me. And so she took a bag of oranges, and apparently, I don't even remember this, and I have to be honest, what a terrible mother. I apparently tore the bag of oranges from her and threw them back because they had Cape Town, and you know, there was the whole boycott, and well, some of us boycott, and so it's you know, how strongly I felt that I needed to do my little bit to support this great guy, Nelson Mandela, you know, and I hadn't obviously explained it properly to my child, so it probably traumatized her a bit, you know, but I sat her down afterwards and explained. She did, we did talk about it. So anyway, the toolbox is a variety of things, music, so books, learning, trying to see, not to fall into the trap that people have felt. Never think you're too important. Never think, you know, it's weighing things up. It's trying to get the balance. You know, when life's very good, just realizing you don't know what's around the corner. Savor what you've got, savor what you're experiencing, and open the door and keep it ajar for others and help, because I couldn't have got where I've got to without all those people that have helped me. You know, writing my memoirs really helped me. I mean, I did know it, but actually, you know, people, so helping individuals and acknowledging the support that you're getting. And actually it can be from people you don't expect the support from. I think it's trying not to be too, not allowing stereotypical assumptions that society have sort of inculcated you with without knowing or knowing it, and not allowing them to continuously interfere with how you want to behave. And that's difficult sometimes because we're all human. We've all got our strengths. We've all got our weaknesses. You know, that's what makes human life so interesting, but it can make it very traumatic and desperate as well. Music is absolutely one of the most important. Books, music, people, first of all, people, books, music. Music, if I can give you a couple of examples, taken from how news during this pandemic can dampen your spirits, to musicians, singers who I've absolutely adored. Toots Hibbert, Mr. Hibbert, he died recently of COVID in Jamaica. And then the recent death, I'm not saying it was to do with the pandemic, but the whole issue of death and dying is affecting all of us at the moment. My brain has gone now, this is age. Who can help me with the Black Heart Man? Come on, this is a test for out there. Black Heart Man.
Black Heart Man who died recently.
I had the LP out recently. Anyway,
we'll come back to you for that one. Now you've challenged us as the audience.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they let people help me out with that.
Please, if they know of this black
Bunny Wailer. Sorry, I've solved my problem. So so what? But their deaths did upset me. I mean, I know, you know, people have got to die. We have to accept that. But you know, what I did in both those instances, I played tracks that I absolutely adored. I mean, for Bunny Wailer, it's Black Heart Man. So I get up, and that's the other thing. There's nobody in my flat. My daughter and granddaughter don't live with me. We're in touch, obviously, during pandemic through use of technology like this, phone, and very important. what do? I get up and dance around my flat to the music that I absolutely adore. Because we know, well, I know, I think most people know that if you can dance around, it releases the endorphins. And we know the endorphins give us that injection of that lovely sense of happiness, and life can be tough, but hey, we can actually create a little bit of happiness in our souls, ourselves. If we've got, now that I appreciate not everybody can do that, not everybody wants to do that, but these are the strategies that have really helped me. And one thing that I have done more because of the pandemic, and that's exercise. Well, also, come on, let's be honest, there's not much to do for somebody like me at the moment. I mean, yeah, there is. So I do this walk now, nearly an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours. I go up to a common and I just trek. I have my wellies on because it's been quite muddy. And I'm listening to my music, but I've also got into podcasts. So I think it's also exploring new things, you know, being prepared to listen to stuff that maybe you wouldn't have listened to, but you've actually got the time to listen to it, and you're trying to sort of keep your brain quite balanced. So those, and finally coming to the tools, recognizing where I'm talking about myself now, where I have some difficulties. Now, because I can look back, I'm not a psychiatrist and I'm not a psychologist, so, but I can realize that one of the areas I've had issues with, or difficulties in adapting, being patient, being tolerant, is with men. Okay. Let's lay it out there. I mean, I love men, don't get me wrong, I actually do. But I'm very intolerant the minute, and it comes from being physically abused by my stepfather for a short period. I'm sure that's the kernel of it, you know, and maybe also not having had a father figure growing up, that has to be another aspect. So I didn't grow up with the norms of, I didn't have a brother or sister that I grew up with, you know, all the things that I think do help us try to sort this out. Those were lacking. So I've had to come to terms that I've had difficulties in relationships and things like that, you know. So, and I think that's where I'm saying you have to just accept you can't have everything, and make the best of what you've got, and value, you know, I've got a daughter, I've got a granddaughter, I've got friends, you know. I'm just pulling stuff from my brain as I'm speaking, Dudley. So I hope this is helping.
No, that's what we want is things to be natural to people, and I think that's one thing is really helpful.
I also, and I'm not preaching or anything, but I'm trying to look at how come, you know, I'm obviously I have aging issues like arthritis and things like that, underlying asthma. So that's why I had to go into lockdown a week earlier than the rest of the population. It was a year ago, isn't it? Now. So I'm conscious, high blood pressure, all managed, but that's where stress has affected me, I'm pretty sure. But I'm fortunate with my health background that I'm aware, and hopefully can see the signs. Listen to your body. I listen to my body, and I try and deal with it. And if as I've said, well, I think I've tried to say, is when I feel that depression coming on, that sadness, that overwhelming fear of helplessness, that feeling of lack of control with what's going on in society, the viciousness that people can display to other people, social media being, unfortunately, I like Twitter, but it gives you an eye on how nasty people can be.
Yeah.
And also the breakdowns individuals publicly have because of this. So when I feel those things, that's where I bring the toolbox in. And if I don't sleep well at night, I know that I'm going to sleep better the next night. I've gradually learned that. So don't get worked up about it too much.
Well, I
so
think
hopefully that's some insight there.
That's an absolutely incredible insight of really your journey through life, maybe your toolbox, which I think everyone is probably want to try and have a sample of. If you've got that for sale, I think it's really key. I think in this day and age, during the pandemic, especially a lot of those in social care have been on the front line. There's been questions about the NHS giving higher priority and social care staff feel maybe left behind. And also as well, the recognition of how hard and what they have to go through. It's not just once you finish work, it continues going home, having to deal with families, friends, community, and as you mentioned, survival. And I think one of the reasons why I believe you're such an inspiration to me personally is because we can all have wonderful lives, but at the end of the day, you came through and have done marvelous things, and still, as you said, are here to tell the tale. And I guess the icing on the cake would be to everyone, and now you're been made a dame. So it's been recognized, all what you've gone through has been recognized by others as well. And I think we sometimes forget that what we're doing as a group. So, but I'd like to thank you very much, really, for joining us. I'd really ask very briefly, because we haven't got that much time, if there's anyone wants to ask any questions for you, and maybe you may have a few answers if there is anyone who wants to answer any questions. I think you've been very complete with everything you've done, and maybe I'll be your agent for the toolbox as well. Okay, so if Grace can unmute, please. She's got a hand raised.
Yes, I have. I've never heard of Elizabeth. This is my first time. And looking at through her eyes, I see a beautiful person. I see somebody who has inspired me, who has encouraged me. And I thank God I came on this program to meet this wonderful woman. Thank God for your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Did you have a question or a comment? I'd be happy to answer. Nothing's off the table, by the way.
If anyone wants to put anything in the chat or anything like that, that's please feel free to. Do you have any questions yourself? You like to anything you'd like to leave us with before you go? Because I think in social care, you have been in both areas of health visitor and in NHS. So what would you say to those who are in social care and really to make them feel valued? What can you press on? Well,
actually, my daughter is in social care. So she was an actress. She still does a little bit of acting, but she's in working in social care and studying for qualification in social care. So it's brought home to me very closely what the challenges are that she's facing. And I think it does get much lower publicity and attention than the NHS. And it's sad that it's only when it affects an individual. I mean, it is normal, unfortunately, but that people start to realize the value of social care. But in terms of the society and government, and in terms of pay and conditions and opportunities, I think it's going to be, we have had scandals emerging from this lack of attention in social care. And I think this is going to appear again and again and again. It's the Cinderella of society, and the curtains have been opened a little bit through the pandemic, but I still don't think society appreciates the stresses and strains within the social care movement, I would call it. And I would hope people might consider writing about it. Or I know it's difficult. It's all right. I mean, I didn't write my memoirs till I retired, but I think there are other ways. And I'm sure, I don't know the social care situation as well as I know the NHS. So it could be that this is happening. But I wonder what is needed to lift social care out of the Cinderella situation that it appears to me. You probably realize I don't know the situation very well, and I'm very hesitant to, I'm just talking as a mother of a daughter who works in social care.
Yeah. I've got just a few questions, for I know we haven't got long with you. So there was one question is, what's the one thing that you would say to a Black woman on International Women's Day to inspire us to press on?
So I shouldn't laugh, but it's press on. It's press on. It's just, but actually, it's to value yourself as a woman, and learn about. I'm sure you have, but learn about what women have contributed, are contributing to society, regardless of the challenges, and work with other women and allies of women to never allow. You know what cheered me up when I was looking on my phone this morning, seeing what gossip there was on Twitter? Apparently Piers Morgan walked out of GMB. I never watched the guy, I can't, you know, that's one of my coping strategies, is to avoid watching people who cause my blood pressure to go up. Sorry, but I'm being honest with you. Yeah. However, I find if I step back a bit and read other people's observations and the little news things, that sort of gets me there. It's to work, you can't deal with it all on your own. It's been a very painful lesson that I've had to learn. And it's the ability to open up with trusted friends and colleagues and allies. And maybe what I've said earlier, sometimes those allies are not the people that you would expect. So just don't allow society to blinker us. That's, I think, what I would suggest.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been really valuable. I think just your knowledge, your experience, and what you've achieved has really been inspirational, not just to me, but I hope to others as well. And it's really given us food for thought, and to think now when we leave here, everyone's going to be looking for a toolbox, and it doesn't refer to a hammer and chisel, but something else which you sort of shown can happen. So really thank and appreciate you joining us. And we will hope to see many more of you in the future, doing other sort of forms of media and so forth, because I think what you've done is really hugely inspirational to everyone.
Thank you very much. Can I do a little plug?
You can do indeed.
I'm asking permission first. So a publisher approached me about what was self-published memoirs in 2016. And so they're now coming out again in September through a mainstream publisher. And they're going to be called Dreams from My Mother. So I think as we're in International Women's Month, I think, I hope people might look out for it in September.
Well, I'll definitely be pushing and sharing it with my network as well and everyone around. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing us your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. And don't forget what I said. I won't use the swear word again, but just.
Yeah, we'll beep it before, but don't worry. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for really being able to be part of that. Time is going fairly quickly, so we're going to move on to someone that I'm proud to be introducing. Part and parcel of this initiative that I've been involved with is with SLaM, and we've got one of the psychotherapists working with me. Her name is Dr. Ellen Heralau, and I'm just going to introduce her quickly. She's should I say, started by doing a project within the BEN community in Lewisham, which highlighted issues of concern within mental health and well-being amongst the diverse community. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce Dr. Heralau. Good morning, Ellen.
Thanks, Dudley, and thanks for inviting me along today. And hello, everybody. I feel a bit following Dame Elizabeth just now is not an easy follow. She was amazing and inspiring, and also I need to apologise because I have to be very brief as I'm running a training at 12 and I'll need to head off at 5:02 to prepare for that. But it's good to be here, and as Dudley said, I'm working with Dudley and Peter and LCAS amongst other people on a wellbeing for staff in South East London project. It's a psychological resilience hub project, and we're sort of consulting across 6 London boroughs in the ICS, which is the integrated care system, thinking about, you know, staff wellbeing, and we are particularly interested in social care staff, for a bit as Dame Elizabeth was saying just now, as the sort of Cinderella, potentially sort of Cinderella organisations where you're perhaps not supported, or there aren't the structures and services in place to provide you with wellbeing support. And so, I mean, Dudley mentioned a little bit about me, but I work primarily in Lewisham IAPT service, which is improving access to psychological therapies, as one of the clinical team leaders, and I'm also the diversity lead for that service. And I have been involved for a few years on working with my community in Lewisham, and we have a very multicultural community in Lewisham, working with them to support to support their accessing and feeling comfortable about engaging with NHS services. So we've been thinking about the sort of barriers, the sort of the difficulty of going to NHS services and not seeing people like yourselves and ourselves in front of us, so that we don't really feel safe. You know, they don't feel like safe spaces. There's lots of sort of systemic, if you like, or structural sort of barriers to accessing mental health services. You know, from ourselves, you know, it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes to sort of feel comfortable about talking about our mental health with other people. It might be not, you know, something we're not used to. So we're also, as part of this project that I'm working with Dudley, is about sort of talking to people from the BAME community and working with them to think about what would help, you know, what's causing them stress, but what will help, so that we don't just invent it in an NHS psychological therapy service, but that we create something that's meaningful and relevant and sort of sensitive to the different cultures that we all come from. And so that's something that I bring from my job into this particular project, which is a sort of time limited project that we're working on. And so, you know, that's sort of one, you know, something that I'm very passionate about, and you know, particularly thinking about this, you know, your sector, the sector that you work in, you know, and how many people do come from the BAME community, and how you know, how you know, things like, you know, the realities of discrimination and you know, affect us in our daily lives and affect our mood, and, you know, can be really triggering for us, you know, as Dame Elizabeth said, you know, to feel not good about ourselves and not to know how to, and you know, and to sort of, you know, feel, you know, not knowing how to help, you know, to get out of these things, where to get support, where are the safe spaces for us. So
I mean, I would say, can I say is one of the things which I think you're saying is so short of, is that as part of the project, there has been many initiatives for the NHS, and I think this is something which is unique for social care to really touch upon, sharing some of the same support which is received by the NHS to those in social care. And one of the things that I'll probably be very proud of is there was a training known as React training, which has been tailored for the NHS. And we sat down and really looked at a project, and we've done it specifically tailored for those in social care, called Resolve, which the doctor will be off to be doing some training sessions with later this afternoon. But the purpose of it is it's producing a well-being champion in all individual workplaces, where they're able to share the knowledge they've learned and take it into their workplace to help those cope with things such as mental health, stress, and really things about to do with anxiety and things to do with that. And I think this is another thing that we've looked at doing as well. So, and I really think it's important of what we're trying to achieve, and especially as the initiatives in South East London, and something which has been done starting in South East London, we hope will be rolled out throughout the whole of the country nationally. But it's showing what can be done for those in social care. And if you look at the flyer, I'm sure you can touch upon this very briefly, Doctor, of what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Dudley, and unfortunately that's why I'm heading off very shortly. Is we've got one of these today. There we are, March the 9th, I think. So it's a 1-hour training, as Dudley said. It's designed. We've redesigned this training with social care in mind, and it really is just, it's really, to expand on what Dame Elizabeth was sort of saying. It's really just about encouraging conversations of well-being, and thinking about how to support ourselves and how to support our colleagues, and how to support our teams, and how to improve our mental health. And it's a sort of toolkit. She was talking about the toolkit. It's part of a toolkit, but it's also what we're sort of proud to say is a training that you get a certificate for, and which can which we feel and we hope will sort of go beyond South East London and sort of gather momentum itself. Some of you might have already been on the training, and maybe some of you are already booked, but please do. We have got some more dates next week and tomorrow even, and we've got some follow-up days at the end of March. So Dudley, I'm presuming you're going to
I will do. I'll leave
circulate this.
Your email in the chat box, and then obviously also give my contact details as well. So we'll be made aware of it. And the follow-up and the end of it is that there's a portal that will be created, which will hopefully be the legacy of the project, where you'll be able to go on to be able to have a safe space, be able to log in and drop in as well. So this is the beauty and the future of such a project and initiative. So please, would like to really share that with you. So
yeah, and if I could just say that if you're not sure about wanting to sign up, but you just want to ask a question, ask me a little bit about it. Just my email address is on the flyer. Just drop me an email, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for inviting me, Dudley. It's really nice to be here, and it was very special to be able to listen to Dame Elizabeth. I am going to head off now, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. What I'll do is I will leave your email address in the chat box, and people can get hold of you, and that should be fine. That'd be great.
Great, thanks, Dudley, and thanks, love. Very nice to see you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So thank you very much for that, and that's really showing you the initiative that's taken place during the project. And that will be an email address in the chat box, so you can actually contact if you want to, or have anyone in your workplace take up the Wellbeing Champion training, known as Resolve, specifically tailored for those in social care. So next, I'd like to just touch upon various other people who've been in social care and during this pandemic have really experienced various things that have taken place. There were two colleagues that I really wanted to really highlight, and really showing what their experiences have been like during this time. I think one of the colleagues, I hope she's still on there, is Deanne Berry. I'm not sure if she's there. Okay.
I'm here.
And are you there? Are you available?
Available.
Thank you very much. I was on a part of a Skills for Care, having brave conversations, and I spoke to Deanne, and she shared a quite interesting story of what's taken place for her during this pandemic. So she works as someone within social care, and it's good to relate what our experiences are with others. And so I'm going to start in giving you her the floor, giving us a rendition of her unique situation. Don't be put off by her accent. You'll soon realize when she speaks that she's not originally from the UK. So without further ado, please, Deanne, it's all yours.
Oh boy, good afternoon almost. It's what, 11:57 here. Thank you, Dudley, for inviting me to come and share my experience of what it's been like being here in the UK. Every day is different for me. I wake up and I'm reminded that I'm not in Canada, especially when I'm not seeing snow. So it's fantastic in that regard. But at the same time, everyone, my name is Deanne. I'm a social care practitioner, and I came to the UK I came here a year ago from Canada and came straight into lockdown, of course. So I still do not know a lot about where I am. I feel a little bit robbed due to COVID because I'm still learning about the area, work, your roads, transportation, your roundabouts. I'm learning about all those different things, as well as coming to terms with the fact that I work in an area where there's not many people that look like me on top of it. And that has been made very apparent just as I come to terms with all the newness, lots of newness that I'm learning about being here, and also realizing that my voice is changing every day as I bite my tongue. So my voice is slowly changing, and that's also a realization for me that I'm not um, at home, but I doesn't mean that I don't love being here and I don't appreciate all that's happening around me. Um, I know that I had to sit down and reflect on a lot of things that I've been saying lately in conferences, and I find that when I open my mouth, this I speak of experience. It's all lived experience, but what I am very aware of is my presence um, in social care. Coming here, I didn't know what to expect. What I thought I would see is not exactly what I've seen. Canada is very diverse. I come from Toronto, where you have a little city of everything. No matter where you're from, you can find a little place to call your own in any block of downtown or the rural areas. Where I live, there's nothing that reminds me of home, let alone even my own ethnic foods and things that I miss that I've now resorted to buying online, which I'm embarrassed to even say what I bought recently online, just so I can have a little taste of my culture. But yeah, it's been very, very, very interesting just coming here and having to learn about the different cultural lifestyle, the way people get along and communicate. I used to say good morning, good night, like I'm always talking to strangers, and here it's like, why are you talking to me? And why are you being so friendly? And are you always smiling? Why are you happy? And I'm thinking, this is just who I am. Um, Even though my family and friends have sent me some Tim Hortons coffee, there's more to my happiness. I'm just happy that I can experience life here on the other side of the world where I've never been. So it's a lot of new experience. In social care, it's been difficult for me. I'm very aware, like I said, of my presence. I'm very aware of how much space I take up in a room. I have lots of questions all the time. I'm always asking things. But I'm also very mindful of the questions people ask me. Perception is that, where I live, it's low income, that, a lot of high crime, whatever you watch in movies and whatever you see about Canada and America, that it's all the same. And I feel like I do a lot of explaining of, what life is like for me at home and the realities of where I live. Um, I came from a middle class background. I'm still in school. I'm educated. I'm here and I'm here for the experience, but I find that my color stops me a lot of time to progress in certain areas of my job. I feel like I do have to perform harder than others to prove my education and experience. And I think being here and not even understanding what BAME was, I've never used that term. Even back home, if I say BAME online, they're like, what does that mean? Or talking about being a Black person, it's very difficult to have those conversations in social care around the type of support that I need. Not only because I'm here on my own, but the fact that where I live, there's no one really that looks like me. And if I do, I see them quickly passing by, and it's like once every month maybe. And so I needed to be able to find out how I could work in social care, but also have some connection to feel included.
So what have you done to cope during this period of pandemic? We know that you've been far away from home.
Yeah.
So where have you gone to help you? Because I think everyone wants to know how you've managed to cope and where you've been.
Oh my goodness. What I've done, first off, is I'm a musician, so I couldn't bring anything with me. The first thing I did was go on eBay and buy a guitar. I needed to have something to do. And so I bought that. I'm a drummer. I don't have drums here. I think they throw me out of my flat if I brought that in. But I had a guitar and I knew I could write. So I was writing songs and poetry and things like that, but I needed more. I needed some social interaction. And so I joined a group. Through one of these workshops, I got to know people, a BAME support group. And through there, I was able to tap into the resources of actually going to online chats. And it was really comforting for me to be able to be in a room of people that, doesn't matter where you're from, but there was people at least there that looked like me. Like when you click on gallery view, sometimes in my meetings, I'm the only one that looks like me. And that could be a really scary feeling for me sometimes. I'm almost afraid to speak, and I shouldn't feel like that. So being in a BAME support group, I was able to actually find my voice and be able to ask questions and ask people, where can I find this? Or where can I buy that? Or how do you go through this experience working in social care or in your field? How do you overcome that and feel safe asking questions? So joining groups, I've kept in touch with family and friends back home on social media, and I'm still very connected to my church because, as you know, everything right now is online. So I've been very attached to family and friends back home. That's helped me. And also exercise, which I thought I would never really do to the full extent, but it's been very helpful for me to help me keep focused and just to feel good. It does release those endorphins. I was getting quite depressed, as you can imagine, being here on my own and being in lockdown and being in my home and not having to go anywhere. So exercise has helped quite a bit. And also joining lots of conferences and workshops. That's been very helpful for me to learn about my history, not only because of all the situations that have happened in the past with um, just all the different things that we all know that's been going on for the last year or so. Just joining things to make me aware of the history. There's lots I didn't know about myself that I've learned about my history and family that I have here in the UK, and just my interests. So I broadened my interests in that way, and mostly importantly, just taking courses still in school, and so that's been very helpful to keep me focused and give me a sense of routine. So that's helped.
Wow. So can I ask you then, because obviously you work in an environment, has your workplace helped you or offered any sort of ways to cope with your maybe mental health and well-being during this period and the belonging?
They've tried, but because there's not many people from the BAME community in my workplace, I don't think they really understand how to help. I think there's a general help of, we can all talk and debrief and talk about things that are affecting us, but there's no one that I can directly say to in my meeting, I went through this the other day and this is how it made me feel. How did it make you feel? I can't really ask that. There's no one else really I can ask that question to. So I've let them know that I've joined other groups on the outside. It's there, but who's really accessing those other groups but me? I don't know how else to say that. I can have a conversation with you, which is helpful, but when I actually need to do something that actually is culturally related to me, I don't have that support there. And so I've had to seek a lot of external support and tap into resources on the outside. I think social care in our aspect is still fairly new. The people who are asking to teach these courses or have these conversations, they themselves are not comfortable having the conversation and they don't even know where to begin. So if I'm going to interject into a meeting, I'm talking about my experience, it's almost like, shh, Deanna's talking. What is she going to say that, is going to make me kind of uncomfortable, but then I have to sit here and listen because it's how she feels. I always feel like that's the kind of environment it's being introduced to, and it's not in a way where it's more like they're apologetic because they can't really help me as much as they would like to because they don't know how. And so I don't really blame them, but all I can do is have the conversation and introduce the conversations and let them be aware of how it's affecting and impacting me. That isolation I feel, or the fact that it's not as culturally diverse as I would hope it would be. and how important that is to see faces. If I'm supporting families that look like me, why am I not seeing more staff that look like me to help me support these families who need that bit of cultural clarity or access or even advocacy? It's not there.
So would that be your one advice from I guess if you allow me to call you an outsider looking in at the system that you've been happen to be involved with now, you know, from a point of, I guess, from someone from a diverse background, working in an organization, I guess people would say, looking at what do you feel would be a good fit or a good place or some highlight of what someone can do for their staff?
I think what's most important is to share lived experiences. I know people aren't going to ask a lot of questions or they're afraid to. I think if I volunteer experiences to give them an idea or a perception of what it's like for the person they're supporting, I think they'll feel more comfortable asking those questions and not feel so intimidated or feel like they're insulting me in some way by asking. I'm actually open to questions. That's how we learn. It's natural to ask questions. So for me, being in the role that I'm in, I'm very aware of the fact that many people don't look like me, but I'm not using that as any reason to not expand on my learning and on my practice. I'm actually using that to open doors to having conversations about a lot of things. So I'm introducing a lot of topics that people don't want to talk about or feel uncomfortable. I'm saying we need to have the conversation because, as the dame said before, like we're in the Cinderella period, and I feel like we're still kind of there. And like, yes, we've had the surface talk about, you know, diversity and oppression and all these words that we're throwing around, but we're not actually having the conversation in a way where we're seeing impact and results. I'm not really seeing that much of it in social care. And if it is, it's just little flashes, like little fireworks, and then they fade. I want an ongoing conversation. And so I'm making that a point to continue those ongoing conversations. And I know you mentioned to me about coping. I thought to myself, if I could leave anything with anyone, when I think of the word cope, I think of challenge. That C stands for challenge. I challenge myself every day to grow and learn from everyone. I think we all have something to contribute. And if I don't open up and speak about my own experiences, how do I expect someone who doesn't look like me to understand what I've gone through unless I share that? So don't be afraid to, is open mind. I keep an open mind. There's things you're going to hear that are going to probably offend you, but think of the person who's asking it. Why are they asking it? And use it as an opportunity to have a conversation. P, positivity. I surround myself with as much positivity as I can. We know that things are negative all around us. I'm very much important to me self-talk, self-love, self-care. I'm taking all those things on board, especially as a Black person. I need to take care of myself. And no matter how much times we say we are doing it, are we really doing it? Because society is telling us that we're not doing it and we're not worthy of it. You are worthy of it. Love yourself, love your skin color, love who you are, embrace all of this. I embrace it all. So you should embrace that as well. And the last thing is E is for experience. I'm taking every opportunity here as a learning experience. Even you, Dudley, inviting me to this. I'm learning more about myself. And I want to make sure that I tell everyone here to know your worth. In Canada, we talk about Black history, but I've learned more Black history being here in a year than I have my entire life.
Wow.
That to me has been an eye-opener. And so I appreciate being here and the fact that I can actually speak up for the things that make me uncomfortable, but also for the things that I find beauty in. And there's so much history here. I think maybe people who live here take it for granted that you have so much history around you. Yes, it may not all be nice history, but it's history. And you have it at your disposal where I've never been open to this type of history before. I've never learned about it. So I'm appreciative of that and I respect that. And thank you, Dudley. I don't really have anything else more that I wanted to share.
No. I think you've shared. I think we've had some really great speakers, and you've also shared. I mean, it's great because, you know, you're not just a guest speaker. You're actually someone who is in social care, and so people can relate. So I think it's really great to touch upon that. So thank you very much for your time, Deanne. And yeah, you keep learning, and I'm sure once the doors open, we'll see you and probably enjoying it making the most of it.
I will find me a drum set, believe me.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
All
Next, we'd like to bring on Eric Cortez, who has got a really interesting story. And this is coming from a different angle. And I'm gonna get Eric up and he will explain of what he's gone through during the pandemic and what he's done. I wouldn't say to to cope, but how he's managed to survive. And I'll let him tell his story. So Eric, please share your story.
First of all, thank you for having me, Dudley. It's been an honor. My background is I'm a registered nurse. I'm currently working in a care home, and I am a deputy manager. I've been a nurse for over 20 years. I had really bad COVID last year in April, and I was in hospital for 2 months. I ended up in hospital for 2 months. I was in coma for 4 weeks. And I had, when I woke up from coma, I had to do a month of intense rehab in order for me to walk again. And it really affected me in so many different ways I can think of, particularly the psychological and mental health that I've experienced. You know, when I was in hospital, I was it was very sad. It's lonely there because no one is able to visit you, you know, from your friends or family, because they're not allowed to visit you. And also it's sad because the people who look after you there are also wearing, obviously they're all wearing PPEs, and you can't really connect with them because you can't see their faces. They're all wearing you know, face shields and masks. So I get to learn how to identify their voices, their accent even, and probably the way they walk. So that's how I get myself get connected. But you know, I did cry a lot when I was in COVID ward, and that's probably when one of the doctors had identified that I probably need some antidepressant, which I'm still on now. I was discharged from hospital in June, and sadly I lost my father on the same month whilst I was convalescing at home. But obviously with the lockdown, I couldn't go home. Home is Philippines. I'm Filipino. And I did my best to get myself together because I'm really passionate about my job, and I'm really passionate about nursing. So I really did my best to get back to work, even though I struggle a lot with breathing and walking. So I really actually forced myself to go back to work. So I went back to work in August last year on a sort of like a phased return, graded return. And I'm so glad that, you know, I've been well supported by my employer, by my staff. My staff are 99% from Bame community, and there's probably 1% that's not from Bame. In my care home, as I can see, I see 2 of my staff have joined in this session today, and I just sent them a hi earlier. I still do suffer from post-traumatic distress syndrome. Hence, I seek advice from my GP, because there were times that I couldn't sleep because every time I close my eyes, there's flashbacks, and I don't know if it's, you know, if I'm still delirious or it's just flashbacks from the trauma that I had being in ICU. So so my GP referred me to a counseling, and without any blink, I said yes, I need some counseling actually, and it's something that I really need to take on. From tomorrow, I'm going to start my counseling tomorrow. So that's how I've been doing, and also going to work keeps me afloat these days. it sort of like give me back some normalcy back in my life, or normality back in my life. I live on my own. I do struggle. So being at work, actually makes me really happy. And see my staff and see the residents that I look after. Um,
I mean,
um,
you mentioned so many things there, and it's such a fantastic tale of survival. I know that you were one of the lucky individuals to be put on an ECMO machine, which probably was a last sort of port of survival during COVID-19. And you've also mentioned you've come back from to work. Can I ask you, during this period of time, and obviously your own experience, you obviously have staff who work with you, what mechanisms or areas would you suggest that people can use or go to cope with their mental health and well-being? As you can understand, the notions of anxiety, depression, and mental health being really prevalent during this period, but really hidden. So what is available to you? And that would be the sort of one of the questions I'd ask.
yeah. I'm not sure how other ethnic minority deal with depression and how they look after their mental health, but we have a culture back home that we look after ourselves, and being, if you're depressed, we have a saying that you can't be depressed. You need to really look after yourself, and it's something back home. It's something still not accepted universally. They think that being depressed is a mental health disorder, and it's something to be embarrassed about. But I'm not worried about that anymore. I've been cultured here, and I learned. I studied psychiatric nursing and all that in the past. But how I manage, I read books. I've not read so many books until I got discharged from the hospital. I have relaxation meditation. I did that. I prayed my rosary. I'm a Catholic, so I pray my rosary every night as a form of meditation as well, and praying for those who are suffering from COVID as well. I couldn't do gardening because I used to love gardening, and I bake a lot. And I used to be a professional cake decorator, but because of a limitation, I couldn't do them. And also, what I did was I drive around little villages and get a coffee and read my audiobooks for a couple of hours, and I feel refreshed, and I go home and I felt tired, and then I go to rest and sleep. But there are times where I feel like I can't control my emotions. That's when I seek help from my GP, and there's not even medication can help me with how I'm feeling. And I think that the help that I am getting from tomorrow is the counseling, which I'm getting, and I'm quite excited to start my counseling, so that I can, if I did that counseling, probably I can share my experience with my staff, and also and assist them if they have any issues. They could also seek help, because probably they just don't know if there's anything available for them. But yeah, so those are the things that I did whilst I was convalescing. I think that
It's been great. I mean, I definitely agree. The first step is we need to change the narrative and say it's okay not to be okay and ask for help. I think that's the first stage for a lot of us during this period. We've been taught to be very resilient, and no one thinks other than, get on with it. And I think we're all human beings who have feelings, emotions, and I know maybe we haven't had the experience that you've had of really coming from a near-death experience during COVID. However, we all have had to cope in some form of experiences of our own during this period. So thank you very much, Eric. I think it's really been really eye-opening, and I think everyone can share the happiness of your survival and some sympathy of what you're going through. But thank you very much for that. And I hope once I speak on further, I will explain of what we can do to sort of address it. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
No problem. So thank you very much for everyone for really attending this session. Before I leave you, there's just really a few things that I want to touch upon. So part of this was put together with LCAS SLaM, and I've been working with some various individuals as well, other people that have joined the project. And it came about because there hasn't been many initiatives for social care, and everything has been brought to the NHS. And one of the strong things for this was we played a role in doing this. And the initiative has really touched upon on what we can do. What we've done is really look at just the things that this project is bringing to the table. And it was starting at the beginning of asking, not us imposing upon you what you need, it was asking what you feel you could have and what you would need. And part of this is just asking some questions. It was putting together a group of just information that you would have, and eventually design the portal at the end of it for you to tell us what you need. The project is really ongoing at the moment. My email address is in the chat box, so you can email me to find out any of the information further going on further. Also as well, we're doing action learning sets and various initiatives that have taken place, which have been really helpful. That's really interesting. So the project is called Keeping Well, and the aim is to really to find a unique initiative that's been done in the country, first time in the country, really looking at the impact mental health and has sort of well-being and the impact that the pandemic has had upon us generally across the board in social care. And we looked at trying to get feedback from various elements. So feedback from action learning sets from managers, what we asked you to sign up for. Also as well from staff as well, which we're able to speak to staff, really ask them how they felt during this period and just speaking to them across the board. We've also looked at obviously sessions like this from a point of view from sort of a Black, Asian and ethnic group of how they felt. And as Ellen said, it's really touching upon the notion of champions and really helping that to come into your workplace. It really requires the help of everyone taking place. And I think it's important we all play a role in that, of what we can do. We are offering a certificate of attendance today. So if anyone, please, they will send me an email during this, at the end of the session, and we'll send you out an initial sort of certificate of attendance. We also obviously the ongoing training. We're obviously covering all of those boroughs in South East London. So please get in touch with us. There's a raft of different types of initiatives. My colleague Peter is going to put that in the chat room, in the box there. And also as well, it's time for everyone to have a say of what they felt like. There is a big stigma that's really felt with, as Eric mentioned, within sort of the ethnic community about mental health and well-being. And it's taboo and we can't talk about it. And unfortunately, you've seen people suffering in silence. The key is to really break that barrier down so that we can really see what people really do need. When you go home, the stresses you may have had from having kids being at homeschooling, from traveling back and forth from work, having to wear PPE, from the government changing regulations and rules, testing constantly as well. I think it's really important that we have this on board and really look at what works. And the beauty of this is that we're building something which is long lasting. So beyond the conversation here, there will be something that you can go to or your staff can be recommended to. I think all of this plays a part in this. And before I leave, there are some questions that I'd like to take from the audience if possible. And I think there was someone that had raised their hand. I'm not sure if she's still there. If anyone wants to, I think there's someone's hand has gone down. Okay, Peter, I believe that if you can send some of the links forward. So there are some of these challenges that some people may have, or concerns or issues, or feel like it's a safe place. Please do share this with your staff. And it's an initiative which is, as they say, free. And people seem to forget that this is a free initiative that we're offering up to all those in South East London. But it also, once it's taken on board, it's really tools that can be used as well outside in other workplaces as well around the country. And if you look out for the Resolve training, wellbeing training, you'll see it's something that will really benefit your workplace as a whole. I'd like to thank you everyone for joining this event. There will be a recording of this. So as I said, my email will be in there, so that therefore you can send me an email and I will send out a list of recordings of this event. It'll be made helpful to you. It's really great to really touch on anything to help those in social care. I'm a real driver for change and really trying to make an impact on and have a voice for those for social care, which really doesn't have that much of a voice. And I think it's really important that we also open our voices, both people like Deanne had mentioned and Dame Edna Anionwu. So I think it's really important that we all do share this and take up anything you can do with the training. I believe that Peter's put in the link for LCAS in the chat box. Please click on it and it'll show you all what we're doing in that. My email is there as well. And really thank you everyone for joining. If you want to get in touch further, you can do. And I said, just send me an email and we can discuss further. And hopefully we'll revisit this event later on when we've developed the portal and various things and training around that. So thank you everyone for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the warm day. Stay safe and keep well, everyone. Thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you, Dudley.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dudley.
Thanks for that, everyone.
Take care.
Hey, Dudley, this is Bernard. How are you?
I'm fine, Bernard.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. I wanted to ask about this. Everybody touched upon it. This whole thing of mental health and how people misunderstand, how people don't understand mental health and the difficulties that comes with.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to the day somebody will bring up a symposium so we can learn more about that. We can discuss these things and open them up so that it becomes a point for discussion, actually.
Yeah, I think we will have that. This is just to whet the appetite of really.
It's a taster, actually.
And this really of the stories, but we will really grow this, and you'll see over the next 6 months of really it becoming more of something that we can look at and really look at together. So I think Bernard, I think you'll be one of the first people I will be calling up to share this. Okay.
All right, Mama. Take care.
Dudley, I have got another question.
Oh, please go ahead.
Is it possible we can change the time of our meeting? Because I was running up and down. We had the SWL meeting at the same time of this meeting.
Yes, I understand that. This happened as a
no wonder why you're absent you were absent in the CCG meeting.
Yes, I know. I wish I could be in 2 places at once.
But I was doing that, running up and down, 2 computers on.
Oh,
and if I hear someone is talking, I have to come back and go back again.
Yes.
So I think it's better like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was a difficult one of trying to squeeze it in. There's so much in the calendar and diary. So if you send me an email, I'll also send you a recording of that. And then, as I said, we're going to touch upon the extra training that's taking place as well. So please do. And yeah, share this with, there'll be a fantastic, I think it was a fantastic session. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did enjoy the last bit about the experience of the lockdown.
Yes.
And some important matters that you discussed there, I have written down, and then I have to go back to the other side and see what's going on. If it's not that important that I know what it is, then I come back here. So
Yes.
Okay for today, but please next time. If you
I will
don't
do.
mind.
So please send me your email, send me a contact, and I will send you and be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, Dudley.
Yes.
Dudley.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hi, sorry.
That's okay.
Can I just ask you, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Paulette.
Okay, hold on. I think it might be my internet. Okay, listen, when you do the next one, is it possible to perhaps do something around motivation? Because I heard some fantastic strategies. I'm just going indoors because of the internet. I heard some fantastic strategies, stroke toolboxes there. However, it's what I'm encountering as staff who aren't necessarily motivated, or the individuals I come in contact with aren't necessarily motivated to do the things that would actually help them. So maybe, I don't know, maybe a session or inclusion on how people can be, how we can help people to become, to raise their motivation, because I think that's a challenging one, because everything from running and music and dancing, etc., fantastic strategies that definitely work, but it's to get motivated to do them, to get out of that, that rut, especially if people are feeling low, not necessarily even depressed, but just feeling low.
I think workplace motivation is a very difficult area, particularly at the moment. We have covered it in bits before, but I'm sure we could do a managers meeting around that.
I mean, Paulette, if you send me your email, what I'll do is what I'm planning to do is this. Sometimes there's never long enough to actually have such a session, and I guess when you have speakers in as well, it also adds to the time that's taken up. And as you mentioned, just to touch on the strategies which that would be helpful, and I'm keen to do that. I'd like to open up again where we actually people come together again as well. We're able to actually discuss things, strategies or things that have helped, and be really good with people like your input to really put something together. So it's more tangible, like as the Dame said, having a toolbox which you can take away from this and actually go home and start using it. It's easy to share stories, and I like, and what we're doing obviously with SLaM is having almost producing something, but there needs to be a tangible toolbox or toolkit or elements of what can be used and going forward. And I think that's really important that you've mentioned.
Thank you. I've just put my email address in the chat there.
Yep, I've got that.
Saving the chats. Yeah,
that's fine. So no, it's really good. And so just remind me of your background very quickly, Paulette, because and these days it's just so many things coming in. So I just need to sort of like sit for a second and say, okay, Paulette, such and such.
Sure. I'm actually within health and social care myself. I'm a trainer.
Okay.
And I do a range of courses for the NHS and across care homes and so forth. I also do counselling as well. So that's a bit of my background, and I'm a pastor.
Wow, you are wearing many hats.
Indeed.
Okay, and I mean, a nosy question, because you seem very upbeat and buoyant. So what would you say are your takeaways, the sort of things that you've probably done to sort of cope during this period of feed that worked for you, would we say?
Oh, hello. Do you know something? One of the biggest things I've done is help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in a sense, I haven't had a lot of time to focus on myself, because there's been so many people in crisis around me and around the different people from the world who somehow, oh, I got your telephone number from a friend.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, you give a listening ear. And many of these are consultants and nursing staff where there haven't been time for debriefing because of the crisis and the unprecedented amount of deaths that they've experienced.
Yeah.
That they needed somebody, they needed a place to just vent or share or just cry and just somebody to listen to. So literally from morning till, especially in the first lockdown, right through to the early hours of the morning, I was going to bed at 6 o'clock in the morning because Zoom and the phone was just ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, it was just instinct just to be there for folks. And then when I had a bit of a reprieve from that, I love to dance. So I joined some live Zoom exercise classes, which were a novelty.
Yeah.
I learned things like Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my training has now come onto Zoom itself. So I very rarely go out to do face-to-face training at the moment, just because of the lockdown, but it's been so good for the occasions when I have gone out, but most of it's on Zoom now, which I'm learning to adapt to, you know, all the activities, you know, I'm learning to adapt to. So there's been a lot of learning as well, but also just the biggest thing for me is helping other people. Yeah,
I think that's really key. I think what we'll do is we'll talk again. I'm not sure if you're on LinkedIn at all.
I am, but I don't have a lot of information on there just because I didn't want to be bombarded. But
No, it's fine. I sometimes people work in different ways, but I think one thing is important right now, and what I'm getting is it's great. What I'm getting is that it's like-minded people who are now coming together, and I'm not saying, I think it's important to do with the individual, but also as well, having a structure that we can all work within is also key as well. I think there is something that is almost bigger than us, or mirroring the nuances that you would have found that work. And actually those are the same things that will work in multiple settings as well. And I think we shouldn't forget that, because our well-being is really key. And I always say to everyone, it will become the ticking time bomb of people's sort of mental health and well-being from the pandemic. We always look at people's physical appearance, but, you know, as you said, people haven't been out. They've, you know, been locked in for so long. They haven't been to do maybe the gym or normal things that they would do normally. You know, something has to give. But really it's trying to have some space or trying to make it work. And as you mentioned, dancing, Dame Elizabeth said music, some people, you know, just chatting on the phone, all these normal things which take for granted can play a big part, you know? So,
yeah, absolutely. We, you know, have obviously tried to encourage lots of people that although there may well be a lockdown, you can still stay connected. We can still go for a walk. You know, we are not prisoners in our homes unless that becomes a mindset.
Of course.
So it's just been trying to help people to still feel free in spite of, you know, the restrictions and the importance of those restrictions as well. But I've also been, where it's been possible, I've just been visiting people and just standing out their homes on the path and just saying hi, just passing.
Wow.
And say hello.
Whereabouts are you based, Paulette?
I live in Surrey.
Okay. So
yeah.
You're
I have attended, sorry, my laptop wants to be plugged in. I have attended some SLaM workshops in the past, and they've been fantastic. So when somebody sent this to me, Olayinka sent this to me this morning, I didn't hesitate. Sorry, I'm just plugging this in.
No, I hope you enjoyed it today.
Oh, I did. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yes.